Hello, I'm Reverend Strader, one of the pastors here at First United Methodist Church in downtown Colorado Springs, and am here with
Reverend Carrie, also one of the pastors here downtown.
We want to continue a conversation we started last week about how we are in healthy relationship with one another. We are conducting this experiment with the congregation or with those of you who are not in the congregation and want to engage in a theology, an understanding of God that's progressive, inclusive, healthy, and focused on the way we are in relationships with one another. One of the ways we do that is to be clear about how God calls us to be in relationship. So there's an old story about a group of monks, and they lived in this monastery where they could not speak. It was a silent monastery. But every year on Christ's birthday, December the 25th, they could say something. So one year a monk stood up and he said, "I find the potatoes not to my liking. They are not soft enough." Sat down. A whole year goes by. And another monk stands up that next year and says, "I find the potatoes to be too hard for my liking, and I would like them to be cooked differently." They go throughout the year, they come back to the third year, and another monk stands up and says, "I'm tired of the bickering." It was funny. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
We are a people, though, who argue.
Yeah.
It's kind of our inherent, like we complain about things, we criticize things, and we get into arguing. It is who we are as a people. And so we're going to look at this letter from an epistle letter to the people in Ephesus. So, Carrie, would you read?
Yeah, so we're in Ephesians chapter 4, starting with verse 25. And again, the contemporary English version is what I am reading from. "We are part of the same body. Stop lying and start telling each other the truth. Don't get so angry that you sin. Don't go to bed angry, and don't give the devil a chance. If you are a thief, quit stealing. Be honest and work hard so you will have something to give to people in need. Stop all your dirty talk. Say the right thing at the right time and help others by what you say. Don't make God's Spirit sad. The Spirit makes you sure that someday you will be free from your sins. Stop being bitter and angry and mad at others. Don't yell at one another or curse each other or ever be rude. Instead, be kind and merciful and forgive others just as God forgave you because of Christ. Do as God does. After all, you are his dear children. Let love be your guide. Christ loved us and offered his life for us as a sacrifice that pleases God."
Last week we talked about language, how language matters, right? You talked about you read from the Common English Version, Contemporary English Version, because it's better for people to hear. And it's interesting the language they use there for being in angry conversations with one another. They really talked about, I think they labeled it dirty talk.
Yeah.
Which I feel like has so many awkward connotations in our world today. Why is that what they chose to talk about being angry with one another and talking mean about one another and gossiping about one another? Dirty talk?
Dirty talk. Yep.
Wow.
Dirty talk.
Okay.
Stop all your dirty talk.
Well.
But then it goes on to say the right thing at the right time. So maybe dirty talk is just that which isn't helpful, that which doesn't build up another, right? Say the right thing at the right time.
I appreciate that. I just thought there was an irony in the use of language there. Well, this comes from historically an understanding of Paul, who is on a journey. And one of the things I love about it is it's framing the relationship between Paul and Priscilla and Aquila. Priscilla and Aquila were married to one another. They were husband and wife. They lived in Rome, as the story goes, and they were exiled by the Roman Empire. And so they went to Corinth, where they found themselves with Paul. And Paul said, why don't you come on a journey with me? And so most likely they were very wealthy. They were tent makers, so they had access to means. And Paul invited them to make his trip a little nicer so he could stay in hostels or whatever and not sleep on the road. So he's paying for his lodging and his travel. But the two things I love about this are, first, it always is Priscilla and Aquila. It's never Aquila and Priscilla. Priscilla is always listed first, which I love the image of embracing of that. But the other thing that I love is this, so play with this image of Paul walking down the road from Corinth to Ephesus, and then from Ephesus to Galatia, and Galatia to Colossia, and visiting all these towns, and Priscilla and Aquila walking with him. Now, I don't know if you've ever been with people who've been married a very long time, 30 plus years, but they have this rhythm of arguing that we might find uncomfortable. So imagine what that looks like for Paul walking down the road, listening to those two, and how did that frame the dirty talk and the what you say in the right time with the right tone in the right order for the other person to hear?
You know what the image that's coming to mind is walking along and Paul saying, well, so how is it that you have been in a relationship for so long? How is it that you've stayed married so long? And I feel like these are almost like as if they're just saying, well, we don't go to bed angry, and I have learned to not just say whatever's on my mind, but I speak the truth. Like, these are things that they
That's
told
amazing.
him, and he wrote them down as like, this is the way to live.
I love that.
That's
fun.
That is what came to mind.
That is fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really fun. I love the image of that. I remember my grandparents sitting there in the recliners, just bickered. I mean, I thought they were bickering, but I realized that was their banter.
Yeah.
That was, after 60 years of being married, that's how they talked back and forth to one another. I don't know if it was healthy or not, but it has this movement to it that I appreciate. Well, we hope you'll join us this Sunday as we kind of flesh this out a little more and remind you that we argue about a lot of things. You may argue with your alarm clock in the morning. You may argue with your clothes and how they fit. You may argue with your pets, with the cars that are on the road. You may argue with your friends. You may argue with your teachers. You may argue with your boss. You may argue with yourself. And you may argue with your God. We are gonna argue. That is a given. The question is, how will we argue? We'll see you on Sunday.